there are so many transitions going on. And when I talk with a lot of people that I talk with who are near the end of life or have family members at the end of life or have chronic or terminal illness, there is nothing but change, and change is hard. And I feel like, you know, we live in a time where so much is changing so fast and we prepare for so many things, but our final chapter, we often leave unprepared. So hopefully this is a guide to supply you with lots of tools and tips and options for writing your own story. Talking about death and dying is kind of a final frontier conversation. So I think it's brave to show up willing to talk about these things, and I congratulate you for doing this. I know from my own experience as a nurse and a mediator that having these conversations is critical to our well-being. So I had two main reasons for writing this book. It's a culmination of my years as a registered nurse, specifically in ICU and trauma and the emergency department, as well as my years as a mediator and a conflict manager. I think all of us have seen the pain and the confusion that comes with, and the chaos that can come with making decisions around healthcare and legal issues, end-of-life celebrations, and closure, especially when we don't know what people wanted. So I think by having the discussions preemptively, people can choose, and there's a lot of peace in that. So it's become clear that having critical conversations ahead of time could have saved countless hours, regrets, challenges, and even dollars. There is a lot of decisions that need to be made that are, you know, around the legal and financial side. This chapter really strongly advocates for attorney services. I give descriptions of these legal documents, and again, with strong recommendations for seeking legal counsel, and stressing that each state has differences. I think our lives and our stories come back to the quality of that life and the quality of that story. And I've defined quality of life as being as healthy as you can and living as meaningfully as you can under your specific circumstances. Anyone in the healthcare system works for you. And again, keep your power. Ask questions. Ask for what you need. Ask what's going on. And keep writing your story the way you want it to read. So there is power in our stories. Our stories live forever, so our stories make us immortal. Our stories give sense and purpose and narrative to our lives. So at the end of the day, it turns out that who we are matters a whole lot more than what we leave. I've found that almost without fail, I'm dealing with good people, no matter how big their conflict is, that just haven't learned the tools to resolve conflict. And when we're talking about death and dying, it's even harder, because I had great people. I saw an older person say to their grown son, I want to talk about what happens to me. And he's like, no, I don't, you know, it's again, making it okay and safe to have decisions, because this isn't about dying. This is about living our stories all the way to the end. I think remembering that we all live on both ends, needing to give and needing to get forgiveness helps things like mitigating blame. And mediators are just trained to walk in the middle of these and again, help people be heard and understood. As a mediator, the work is confidential. So many things end up in court, and it's just a disaster when things get to court. So having difficult conversations that set everyone up to be heard, to hear, and to make your own choices. The role of a mediator is not to make decisions for you, but help families come together. And without fail, 100% of the time, I've seen relationships improved. And sometimes people just come because they have everything worked out except the relationship part. I mean, what family doesn't have that person that's on the outside? And, you know, my goal, I mean, I think as a family, if we can come together, we start with our families and then our communities and then hopefully our world. But it definitely comes to, doing this on a micro level and learning these skills first. Now is what matters. And while we can't control the circumstances of what happens to us, we can control how we handle that. And I have one shot at this journey we call life. And I don't know how long I have, none of us do, but I know that I have one day less than I had yesterday. And I believe that we leave our legacy every moment and every interaction. And who we are in any given moment lives on. And when we recognize the finite nature of our days, I believe we can live purposefully, write a beautiful story, and die without regret. Whatever. And so I really do think we're on the beginning of a frontier of recognizing the value of the story. But I know with my parents, I didn't think to ask them, questions until it's too late. We don't think to get to know. We're just the kids following our parents around. But if we make a movement to talk about that we are mortal and there may be a time when we don't have this. The thing with my work, Sarah, is I worked in trauma and intensive care and so in emergency departments. So I saw this happen to all ages. I mean, you maybe don't have until you're, old and making tough decisions. This might be it, does. We're just learning. It can hurt in the short term to be brave enough to have these conversations, but it spares you a lifetime of pain. Well, you all have been awesome. It's been just a pleasure to hear you all's stories, and thank you so much for showing up. And I hope our paths cross again.